All right. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to our next session, How to Be a Non-Traditional College Success. We have a couple of gentlemen here from this organization, and I'll let them introduce themselves. I'm first going to let Sebastian Donoso go ahead and introduce himself and talk a little bit about non-traditional college success.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sebastian Donoso. I'm an airframe design engineer at Lockheed Martin. I was born and raised in Connecticut, and I actually came from a non-traditional background myself before pursuing mechanical engineering as a college major at the University of Connecticut. A little bit about me, some of the pictures you see here. In my past, I've worked at Boeing and supported the 747 program. That's the big jumbo jet with 4 engines on the bottom right. I also supported the Chinook program in design. That's the image right atop mine with my dog. And I currently support the CH-53K heavy lift helicopter at Lockheed Martin Sikorsky, which is the top right picture over there. That being said, like I mentioned before, I grew up as a violinist. I took a very big interest in music theory, to improvisation, as well as a little bit of arranging and composition. And I realized that the approach I was taking to music was very analytical and unfitting for that of a musician. And I realized the skills I was learning could best be used in engineering. And I ultimately became an engineer because I wanted to solve big problems. And I realized that, music can change the minds of the few who understand it, but technology changes everything, from the phone that you use to scroll through TikTok to the airplane that you ride in on your way to visit a new place. Technology is all around us, and as a result, so are engineers. Now, that being said, I'm also Chief Strategy Officer at Nontraditional College Success. We're a nonprofit organization dedicated to boosting representation of non-traditional students, such as yourselves, at large companies such as Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, NASA. We also provide resources to maximize your chances of career success, despite the many barriers we have to overcome being a college student. And we have countless resources countless resources that students like you can use at your disposal, like podcasts, LinkedIn Lives, and company overviews, all geared towards understanding what being an engineer will be like and how you can best develop your career. That being said, I'd love to introduce my good friend, Arnold Morales, president of Non-Traditional College Success. Take it away, Arnold.
All right. Thank you for the introduction, Sebastian. I'm excited for this. It's amazing to see high school students, especially in high school, coming into things like this and listening about engineering and just trying to be curious out there. I will say that I'm an engineer now, but when I was in your steps, I didn't even know what an engineer was. When I was in high school, I did not know what engineering was. So you are all ahead of me already, because at least now you know what engineering is going to be. But for those of you who don't know what engineering is, pretty much engineering is using math and science to solve problems. It could be anything like solving transportation problems. So we design airplanes, solving apps, making phones. So anything that is made pretty much has the hands of an engineer on it. But okay, so a little bit about me, my background. I grew up in Honduras in Central America, and it was kind of a sticky situation in Honduras where my parents got divorced and we pretty much went bankrupt. So I came back to the US, where I was actually born. I was working at a warehouse. So I was working at this job and I hated my job. I was working crazy hours and I just didn't like what I was doing, moving boxes all day. So I did what a lot of you have probably heard is, hey, why don't you go to college? Why don't you go get a college degree? And at the back of my mind, I was like, that sounds like a good idea, but that's going to be tough. So I kind of kept on hearing. So I went to IB Tech Community College. I went to community college where pretty much I went and I was like, hey, I want to come to college. So I was faced with 3 big obstacles that probably a lot of you have right now when thinking about college. And the first one that I want to talk about is I had no idea how I was going to pay for college. I was like, okay, I am broke. I am a poor person. I don't even have money to go out to eat to a restaurant or something. How in the world am I going to pay for college? Like, that just didn't make sense to me. But people told me, and that was a good thing that I asked around. So one thing you need to ask around, you need to ask people. And if you don't know who to ask, then right now you're talking to people you could ask. You're meeting Sebastian, you're meeting me, you're meeting us, so we can always give you advice. And so a couple people told me, Arnold, don't worry about that. There's these things called financial aid. There's these things called scholarships. And worst case scenario, you could get a loan. And that just terrified me when they said loan. So I was like, okay, you know, whatever. Anything is better than moving these boxes for 12 hours a day. So I'm going to go check that out. And I went to the community college and they said, oh yeah, since we're a smaller college, we tend to have financial aid. So that's the first thing that all of you need to do if you don't know how to pay for college. Sign up for financial aid. It's FAFSA. It's a whole bunch of confusing terms, but there's always in these colleges or in your high school, there's advisors that can give you all this advice. That's why they're advisors. So they can give you all these, hey, here's how to pay for college. Here's how you can do it. So I went and they told me about financial aid. So pretty much financial aid is some free money that low income people get from the federal government. And so I signed up for this, and that financial aid pretty much paid for for the first semester. And I was like, wow. I was like, I'm really going to go to school for free pretty much. And then it was like, okay. At that time, my girlfriend, now my wife, so at that time she was my girlfriend, she had really good grades. So I was like, you know what? I want to impress this pretty señorita. I want to impress her. So I want to get good grades also. So I got good grades my first semester. And after that, I was like, okay, someone recommended Arnold, apply to scholarships. And I applied to a scholarship. They gave me that scholarship. So at that moment, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, the scholarship plus the financial aid is more than my tuition. Tuition is what you have to pay the school. So I was like, so what happens with that money left over? And they're like, here you go, Arnold. It's you to go use for all your other expenses. And I was like, okay, hold up. I am getting paid to go to college. And they're like, you're not really getting paid because you need to go pay for an apartment and all that stuff. But yes, we're giving you money. And I was like, and this is free money. I don't have to pay it off. They were like, no. So from there, I went back and I started helping students, telling them, hey, you can get free money. So with that, I've been an advisory council. So I've been on the boards for Hispanic Scholarship Fund, which is like one of the biggest scholarships for Hispanic. I've been on the boards for local nonprofits in Indiana. That's where I went to school on scholarships. I've been a interviewer, essay reader, and all of these things for the Bill and Gates Melinda Scholarship. Bill Gates, like one of the richest people in the world. So they give out hundreds of millions of dollars. And you know what? A lot of it goes unused, which is crazy in my mind. There's like, I think it was like 20, $30 million every year go unused of scholarships because no one applied. Everybody thought they weren't going to get the scholarship, so just no one applied. But then Arnold came and Arnold applied to all of them. So guess who was getting the scholarships? I was, because everybody else wasn't applying. So that's the first thing I would say. Make sure you start applying to scholarships. You will be surprised at the scholarships you can get. I saw one scholarship that was like for left-handed people. I saw one scholarship there was one scholarship for moms in college, and no one applied. So they gave it to someone that was pregnant. And then they even gave it to someone that didn't even have a baby yet. So that's like how bad no one's applying to scholarships and it goes unused. So what I'm trying to say with that is, hey, go find out about financial aid. Go, if you don't know where, go talk to advisors, go talk to these people whose job are to help you, and apply to scholarships. There's a lot out there and a lot of people don't apply. And I'm on the other side. I'm telling students, you're getting the scholarship of your dreams or not. And with that, just a quick, hey, what's a good advice to get scholarships is, work with your advisors on getting a really good essay and working on being a leader in your campus and things like this. Like, hey, I'm part of SHPE, a student chapter, a junior chapter. Those are like the things that really stand out. The other thing I will say with paying for college is don't worry so much about it. And I know it's hard, especially like in my case, coming from a low income background, it was hard not to worry about that aspect, but it will pan out. And then also, worst case scenario, there's always loans. I highly recommend against them. But I do realize that if I put in a $20,000 loan with the 4 years, and then I end up making $80,000 a year later, or a computer engineering degree, $100,000 a year, so it really pays for itself very easily. And I do have some student loans. But so in general, I think I ended up the 4 years of my college degree with, I think it was like $70,000 of free money. $70,000 because I applied to scholarships, and they gave it to me, and I will never have to pay that back. It was just free money, $70,000. And then one of my friends had like $90,000. So we have a podcast episode actually about how to get scholarships. So I'll send you that way. Go listen to that podcast episode all about how to get those scholarships. So okay, so that one, my biggest struggle was overcome. Next slide. And then because of that, I was able to graduate because I was able to finish my degree. So here's a picture of me with all the books that's pretty much all my bachelor's and master's degree books together. And then the day that I graduated, it wasn't just me, it was also my family. This is a picture of my family at my graduation party. And I am the only one in that picture that has a college degree. But everyone celebrated it like if they had the college degree too. So it's not just something that I felt super proud of, my whole family felt proud of. And now the younger people in that group all want to go to college. So I'm super excited about that. So the second biggest struggle that I had is, who do you want to be? They asked me, Arnold, what do you want to study in college? I said, I have no idea what I want to be in college. I literally went in without even knowing what I wanted to be. I was like, you know what? I want to be a business major because I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to be rich. And then they were like, okay, that's probably not a good reason to go to a business major. So they're like, how can we help Arnold know what he wants? And I was like, I don't know. So they're like, go to the advisors. So I'm saying the same thing over and over again. Go seek help. That's the main thing you can do. The difference between people who really get all those opportunities, the ones that actually seek help and are like open looking for opportunities. So I went to talk to academic advisors. They told me, hey, Arnold, we actually have a test for people like you that don't know what you want to study. And I was like, cool, where do I do this test? So they put in a computer, I did like an hour of answering a whole bunch of random questions about like, do you like to play with science, or do you like to play with arts, or do you like music, or do you like this? And it just asked me a whole bunch of questions. And at the end of that hour, it came out that I would be a good fit for a STEM major. And then I was like, cool. And then they were like, Arnold, and I was like, oh great, I love math and science. Like going into high school, I was a very bad high school student. Don't think I was like a great high school student. I was really bad high school student, but I liked math. I liked learning. So I do not recommend that. You need to be a good student to get a lot of those scholarships. But I was like, okay, you know what? Engineering, that sounds cool. I was like, I don't know what it is, but that sounds cool. And then they were like, so if you know what engineering is, you're already beating me. And they're like, what type of engineer you want to be, Arnold? And I was like, I barely know I want to do it. I don't even know what engineering is. So you're asking me about which type of engineering? And then they're like, yeah, what type of things do you like? At that time, I used to race ATVs, so quads and Honduras. And then my brother had modified cars for quarter miles. So all these cool things. I really love motors. I really like motors and cars and motorcycles. So they're like, well, you should look into mechanical engineering. And like, you know what? That sounds amazing. I'm going to go be a mechanical engineer. I went home that night and I spent hours on YouTube and on Google looking up what is an engineer, what is a mechanical engineer. I had signed up for engineering school without even knowing what it was. So here comes Arnold. But fast forward a couple of years, it played out. I ended up working on some amazing products. I ended up working on nuclear missiles. So anytime you see in the movies, the nukes, the nuclear, the football, all those nuclear missiles, I was this kid working at a warehouse, just going to this community college, and then ended up working on nuclear missiles. So I was like, whoa, this is so cool. I am making everybody safe. I am making the world safer because I am working on nuclear missiles, so no one attacks us ever. And then I ended up going over to Boeing and working on designing airplanes. So like, okay, you can imagine me thinking, man, I design airplanes, I design nuclear missiles. And once you go over to meet friends and you tell them that, it just sounds really cool. So yeah, so I got to do all these cool things working, and I just love my job. So that was, I think, the biggest difference between going from a job that wasn't with education, like a college degree, versus having one with a college degree, was that I loved my job. One, I got paid a lot more money to do it. And two, I loved it. I used to go into work, because now it's virtual. So I used to go in like with a smile on my face. My wife used to make fun of me. She's like, I've never seen someone so happy going to work. Like, why are you so happy? You're going to work. You're supposed to be sad. So now she's finishing her college degree and going actually work with Boeing too. So that's pretty interesting. But yeah, that was the biggest thing with me, was like, I don't know what I want to do. And I will tell you as advice for all of you high school students out there, don't do something that you're not going to be passionate about. Don't do something just because your mom, your brother, your cousin says, hey, you should be a doctor. you should go be a lawyer. Just because they tell you what you should go do, don't do that. Go do what's something that you're passionate about, because that's the only way that you're going to want to stay doing that. And because if you're just going to medical school because your parents wanted you to go, you don't even like medicine, then you're going to end up dropping out, and you're going to lose interest. So you need to go find things that you want to do. So yeah, I think that's kind of my advice on the second biggest problem that I had was I don't know what to do. And then the third biggest problem I had was I felt like I didn't fit in. I felt that I was first generation. So if you're a first generation college student, that pretty much means you're the first one in your family to go to college. So that's a whole other roadblock that you don't really know who to ask. You don't know what to do. You're really lost. But the thing I think about it now is like, I wasn't just paving the road for myself. I was also paving it for my family, for everyone coming after me. So that was one thing that was amazing. But yeah, I felt like, hey, you know what? I'm an engineering student without even knowing what engineering is. I'm in Indiana in the US, and I grew up in Honduras. So I felt kind of weird about that. And then I was in Indiana where most of the people in engineering school was white, and I was Hispanic. So I was like, okay, I don't know any Hispanic person here. So I always felt kind of like an imposter, kind of like an Among Us. I felt like the imposter of the group. I felt like I didn't fit in. But then I just kept working hard, and I started to get all these great opportunities that started to tell me, you know what, Arnold, maybe you're not an imposter, but honestly, I feel like I just do all these great things. I push myself to do all these cool things just to prove that I'm not an imposter, but I still feel like an imposter. I think that's what I do, but it works. I got invited to speak at a whole bunch of different organizations, presentations all the time. So like on that top left picture is one presenting at a school in person, just talking about kind of my career and how it went from, I have no idea what college is, to landing one of the biggest engineering jobs you can find out there, for at least for aerospace. I also got invited to be a NASA aerospace scholar. So I'm over here after 1 year, 2 years of being at the warehouse, now at NASA, doing a competition with NASA as a community college student. I even got invited to sit behind President Obama on one of his speeches on free community college. Like the school picked me to go represent the school and sit behind Obama, the president. So I was like, that's really cool. So I got all these opportunities being that warehouse kid that was my parents. My mom was a maid, she cleaned houses, and my dad, he painted houses, labor work. So that's what I thought I needed to do just to be successful like them. But they kept on telling me, Arnold, you can do more than what we did. And now that's why now I have a 2-year-old, so I'm going to do that for her. Like, you can do more. And I want to tell you the biggest thing that I've noticed about feeling like you don't fit in, or feeling like you don't belong in college or something like that, is that there is a lot of imposters out there. There's a lot of people like me who think they're imposters, but in reality, they're not. We just don't share those stories so much. And that's how actually the podcast started, was, hey, let's have people that have non-traditional, that come from non-traditional, which is first generation, low income minorities, talk about their college success, how college made them successful. And I just wanted to highlight a couple. Here is a picture of a couple of my favorite. At the bottom left, we have Janelis, so I almost forgot her name. Janelis, she went from her teacher in high school laughing at her because she said she wanted to work at NASA. Her teacher was like, you can't work at NASA. You're a girl. You're a Latina. You're from a low income. And guess what? She ended up getting an internship and working for NASA. And then after that, in the astronaut suit is Jose Hernandez. Jose Hernandez grew up in California, picking fruits. He grew up in the fields, picking at the farms. His parents didn't even get high school education, but he ended up saying, hey, I want to get an education and I want to go far. So he ended up becoming an engineer, and then ended up becoming an astronaut. And he's actually the first person to tweet in space in Spanish. So pretty cool. On the top right is Margaret Dominguez. She was raising pigs in Mexico. She raised pigs in Mexico. So if you see all these stories, you wouldn't imagine these people like doing all these great things later, but you can. All if you put hard work and education, you can. So Margaret, she was raising pigs in Mexico with her family, and now she has a doctorate, a PhD at NASA, working at NASA. And then in the bottom, we have Jessica. Jessica was working at a McDonald's, and now she works at Boeing designing airplanes, kind of like I do. And I don't want to take up any more time, so let's just jump into Q&A. So if you have any questions, and then Sebastian, you can come in also. If you have any questions for me or Sebastian about going to college, about any of your struggles, anything you're scared of, let me know. You can put them in the chat and we can answer those.
And there are no dumb questions at all. The only dumb questions are that in existence are the ones that you don't ask, I would say.
Yep.
And as an engineer, you got to ask a lot of questions. It's okay to be curious. It's the perfect place to be curious and to ask and to understand.
During the registration process, we actually got questions. So if they're a little timid to not put it in the Q&A or in the chat, I have a list of questions that some folks asked ahead of time. So the first one that came up here, if you could go back and be a college student now, what would you do differently?
I'll let you answer first, Sebastian, since I just talked a while.
So if I could go back to college and do something different, what would it be? That's a very like multifaceted question, actually. So in terms of my major, I would have actually I would have loved to add a second major in computer science or something along the lines of using computational methods to solve problems. As a mechanical engineer, you use a lot of tools at your disposal to solve different problems related to design, analysis, even systems like Arnold is, and structures like where I am. But you see a really big engineering trend is using software methods to solve those engineering disciplinary problems that you're facing. So the first thing I would say is having some aspect where I really keep up with my programming and computational skills. Now, if I could also go back to college, I would also have applied very aggressively to scholarships, which is actually something I didn't do. Now, I took out student loans, and it's just like Arnold says, I have no issue paying for it back, and it completely pays for itself. That being said, those are, I guess, my two biggest answers. How about you, Arnold?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I wish I would have done was go to more conferences, go to more things like this, go to in-person things that I was scared of going because it's like a huge conference, and go meet people that I don't know. Like, I barely want to meet people. And then the other one was I don't have money. And in reality, the first couple of years, I was like, I don't have money. But then I realized, hey, there's a scholarship for going to conferences too. So their school has grants, the school has all these things that I took advantage to at the end of my 4 years in college. But I would say that was the main thing that I would have wished I'd gone more to conferences. And I was very involved in school. So I don't wish I would have been involved, because I was very involved. But that's one of the things that I see that a lot of people regret a lot of times, is not being involved, just caring about going to school, getting good grades, and leaving. Grades are important, but after 80% and up, it's just grades. Like, as long as you meet that, hey, it's good grades, then you're fine. The rest of the time I would dedicate it to making sure that you network with people, you make friends, you enjoy college, you go to activities that you're going to enjoy, just to make it a good experience for you, never to drop out or just keep going. That's what I would say. And then we do have questions, Joe, in the Q&A and in the chat.
Yeah, do you want to field?
Okay. I'll just go through them then.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. What does the Boeing workforce breakdown look like? I guess I'll answer this one since Sebastian started the next one. Aerospace and defense and engineering in general, it's still majority white males. That's still going to be the majority, but it is changing a lot. Especially companies like Boeing, they're starting to put out their metrics. So you can actually go on Google and find out how many Hispanic people work at Boeing, how many females work at Boeing. You can go find out how many executives are Hispanic. And the reason why they put this out there is because they want to be held accountable by everyone and saying, hey, here's where we're at, but we're going to keep improving. So I think the work, and I guess with diversity, that's the case. And then if it's like degrees, I would say Boeing, and the same as NASA, same as Lockheed, all these big companies, they're going to have everything that you can imagine, even jobs that you wouldn't imagine, like a nurse or like a firefighter, even things like that. These big companies have sometimes on staff. So there's a lot of different majors. I think that answers the question. Good.
I was going to also say it is very it definitely is very segmented. So you have the engineers that solve the problems, right? They design a part, they design an airplane. You have the stress engineers and the analysis engineers that actually analyze it and see, okay, will it actually work? But then you also have production, the people who actually say, okay, we're going to use our engineering skills to figure out how it works. And then you have like the mechanics who actually go and put it to action. So it definitely really is a mixed bag, both at Boeing and other aerospace and defense companies.
Yep, definitely. And Sebastian, I'll let you answer this one. How has your career path changed, pivoted because of COVID?
So I went to because of COVID, everything went remote. So when I actually started back up in Boeing in Philadelphia, where they do primarily helicopters, my entire time there was actually virtual. And as a result of that, I was actually able to go to school full time as well at the same time. And so when everything is remote at the same time, you're able to balance a lot more responsibilities, or at least that's how I usually see it. But with things getting less intense now and things are a little bit more in person, you also get to see the meaning behind your work, like why you're designing a certain part. How does it fit on the aircraft? Like even today, I just got out of a water test for a helicopter where they just soak it in water and you have to find all these leaks and figure out the fixes right on the fly. So it depends on the company, but it really is different for everybody.
Perfect. And then let's see there's some Q&A questions on scholarships. Are there any no essay scholarships you know of? I would change your mindset on that and start looking at it as hey, if this scholarship doesn't include an essay, how are they going to know who I am? How are you going to differentiate yourself from everybody else that's applying, because no one's putting an essay, so everybody's just a number. So I would think of, instead of looking for the easier route, I would say, hey, let's focus on putting in the hard work so you can get the rewards. And that's just going to be not just in essays, but applying to universities. Right now, you're all in high school. It's going to be the same. Applying to universities, getting scholarships, getting your internships, which is like a job while you're in college, getting your first job. All of these things are going to take you a lot of hard work on applying. And I will tell you, it is overwhelming. It's really hard to start applying to things. But once you get like especially essays, once you have like everything set up, like general essays for things, the rest of them is much easier because you already have your templates, and then you end up just copying pasting stuff over and just changing it a little bit. So don't be scared of doing essays. I would say think about it as, hey, which scholarships do I qualify for? And do you have anything to say for that, Sebastian? If not, I can go to the next question.
No, you pretty much addressed everything.
Perfect. Okay, and then kind of continuing that question is, where do you find these scholarships? That is a great question, and I wish I would have told you earlier. So one thing I would do is, the first thing, go to your school's scholarship office. They all have scholarship office, like a community college, universities. Once you go into your college degree, they'll all have scholarship offices. So go there. That's the first place I would go. Also, some of your high schools might have in your career advisors, they might already know about scholarships. So that's another one that I would go to, because you're high school. Then once you go to college, I would go to the career services office. The other one that I would do is think about yourself. Think about who you are. Are you a person of color? Are you a minority? Is there something unique about you that you can go find organizations that target your audience? So in my case, I'm Hispanic. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go look for scholarships for Hispanics. I know people that are African American, and they go look for, there's these Black organizations that are just amazing with giving out scholarships. So they go look for that. There's a lot of ones for women. There's a lot of ones for like, hey, I graduated from this high school, so there's some scholarships for specifically for these people. So I would go look for organizations that do that online. Go look up, the way I found Hispanic Scholarship Fund was I put Hispanic scholarships, and I literally found Hispanic Scholarship Fund. The other one I would say is, so that's two ways. The third one is online, looking up online, looking for scholarships, and just talking to other people. Like in this case, you get to get advice on go to apply to the scholarship. So talking to other people about scholarships. Those are kind of like the three places that I would go look for them. Sebastian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. So you could also You could also look for scholarships while you're in college too. And your school scholarship office will most likely be bigger than your high school's one. But to be honest, I think it's far easier to do those things while you're in high school, because a lot of our organizations pay more attention to you when you're younger versus when you're kind of older in college. There's still those opportunities, and there's still lots of them, but you know, on average, I would say on average more people from the community college, from the four-year universities, are paying attention to those scholarships versus the high schoolers. So you can really get a leg up doing this stuff early, you know?
Yeah, I love that. Doing it early, that is great, especially because you're in high school. Like I told you, when I was in high school, I had no idea about engineering or scholarships. So I got $60,000 by applying to scholarships while I was in college already. Imagine if you start applying now. That's
Yeah.
gonna be free college.
Couple of questions here that I have on my list from the registration. We kind of talked a little bit about internships. Any advice on internships? Can high school students get internships? What was difficult about finding these internships?
Wanna go, Sebastian? This is my sweet topic, but I'll let you go.
So the question was, just to make sure I understood, the question was, how does one go about finding internships? Cut out a little bit.
Yeah, best avenues and advice, and then like what was difficult about finding them, and can high school students have them too?
Yeah. So I would say the whole process, the whole journey starts with you. And so you really gotta make sure you have the mentality, you know, I can do this, I belong here, and I'm gonna make it. If you don't have that confidence, it's way more difficult. And so now going into the actual concrete things you can do to find internships, there are organizations that provide high school internships in addition to college internships and teach you how to write a resume and how to behave in a job setting. That organization is called inroads.org. I used that when I first started college, and they taught me like from the ground up. Didn't matter that I didn't have relevant work experience. I delivered pizzas before I went to college, and I was still able to make something really cool for a resume out of that and still get interviews. I would say also exactly what you're doing, getting involved with SHPE early on. Hundreds of different companies from various different disciplines scramble to hire brilliant SHPE students like yourselves at these conferences for internships. And it doesn't even matter that you're a freshman. So going to those national conferences and making sure you're prepared for the national convention and the career fairs that come of it, that would also be very, very useful as well. Arnold, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I do want to add is there was not a lot, but there was several high school interns at most of the companies I actually went to. So I was surprised. I was like, man, these students are like high school, and I'm over here in college struggling to find an internship. But it's just amazing. Like, and a lot of when I talked to them, a lot of it was, hey, I was involved in my robotics team in high school. I was involved in my engineering team in high school. So these students were involved with these competitions, were involved in high school, and that's kind of where they got recruited. The people at these competitions, at these organizations, they would say, hey, this is a great student, let's bring them over. And they just a lot of times didn't just bring them over as, hey, come do an internship. They even gave them scholarships too. And I'm like, man, I wish I would have done some of that. And Sebastian said something really important where it's you have to be confident. And that's kind of the biggest struggle that a lot of people have, is like, how do I feel confident? Well, I will tell you that it's really the only way to really feel confident is by doing it a lot. So I keep on saying, like, the Girl Scout cookies sellers are going to be the most confident people in the future, because they keep on doing the same thing, keep on getting rejected, and they just like, okay, whatever. They keep on doing the next thing. They're like, hey, do you want Girl Scout cookies? No. Okay, next person. Do you want Girl Scout cookies? No. Okay, next person. Do you want Girl Scout cookies? Yes. And that's how you need to be able to get scholarships, internships. You can't just be discouraged with one no. You need to kind of keep on going until you get those yes. You don't really lose or you don't fail until you stop trying. Once you stop trying, that's when you failed. So you need to keep on going until you get those scholarships, until you get those internships. Just keep on trying, and each time improve a little bit. Because if you did it something the first time, then you need to start improving, so the next time you do get it.
And really, like Arnold's saying, there's more than one way to kind of craft that skill of persistence. For me, I had countless terrible solos when I was at my performing arts high school, and I would mess up in front of big crowds. And as terrible as those feelings were at the time, each time I messed up a little less, and each time I got a little more confident, each time I got a little better and a little better and a little better and a little better. And those skills, regardless of how relevant or irrelevant they are to engineering, still play out and still carry over. And so there is no one road to becoming an engineer. You know, Arnold and I became engineers and we studied the same thing, and we do vastly different day-to-day stuff. But at the end of the day, we want the same thing. We have the same mission.
Yeah, and it sounds like, oh, Arnold, your story sounds really cool. You work at the Boeing company, you do your dream company, you got all this money and scholarships. But I guess the part I don't tell you is I applied 3 years in a row to Boeing. I applied to like 40 positions. I applied 40 times. I went to the conferences and in person and went 6 times up to a recruiter to talk to them. And those 6 times, only 3 of those times they gave me interviews. And out of those 3 interviews, there was 1 offer at the end. So 3 years, every single couple of months, going and trying to get my dream job. And it was the same with scholarships. I did get $60,000 in scholarships, but I probably got $2 million that I didn't get because I applied to all these that I never got. But hey, who cares about the ones you didn't get? You got the ones you wanted, so that's a good thing. So yeah, so I applied to a lot of stuff. But don't think it's all just, oh, you're gonna apply and you're gonna get it. No, expect like out of every 40 applications to get something like 1 or 2, something like that.
I will also say that one thing you could do right now, literally after this seminar, is to literally go on linkedin.com and just make an account. And LinkedIn is essentially, and I'm going to feel old for saying this, it's essentially a Facebook for professionals. So this is where people talk about the position that they're in, what company they work for, work-related posts, things like that. And all you need to do is just make an account. And if you have a nice professional looking profile picture, great. And you just start following stuff you like. So you can literally look up somebody who's a software engineer at Facebook, or somebody who's a mechanical engineer at Lockheed Martin, or somebody who's a systems engineer at Boeing, like Arnold. Or you can also look up non-traditional college success on LinkedIn, which kind of consolidates everything too.
Yeah.
So
and Instagram.
there's definitely, yeah, and Instagram. So you can get in, there's ways to get involved on the social media aspect, that one being LinkedIn. And I will say that information is always free if you ask nicely. There is nothing stopping you from finding somebody that you think, hey, they're an aerospace engineer at this company. I want to be there someday. Why don't I just message them and ask them a few questions? 9 times out of 10, they're more than happy to answer you. Number one, especially because you're a college student or a high school student, and number 2, because you ask nicely and you're curious. They're happy to just talk about themselves. People love talking about themselves. So take advantage of it, and take advantage of it while you're a high school student, because it looks even better.
Yeah, I've had a couple of high school students reach out to me through LinkedIn, and I'm just impressed. I'm like, man, they
have a LinkedIn. Yeah,
I know. Like, man, high school, like, I didn't know what engineering was. Like, these people already have a LinkedIn. So, like, go do that. And then every time I get one, I'm just like, I would be happy to meet with you, just because I'm like, I know this person's going to succeed. Just because at this age, they're already doing those things that are going to make them successful. They're putting themselves out there. They're pushing themselves. And I know they're going to be really successful, and they might be my boss one day. So I'm going to make sure I meet with them when they're in high school, because then they can give me good pay raises or something like that.
And again, professionals will go out of their way a lot of the times to help high school students. They won't do it as much for college students, but for high school students, because so few of them reach out, you can really stand out, and it doesn't require a lot of effort on your part as much as it would for somebody like older like me. But just put yourself out there, and don't worry about messing up. Don't worry about it needing to be perfect. Anything helps to start, and that's how you develop your confidence and your persistence, where again, I belong here, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna make it happen, and it's because of me. Like that, those kind of things, repeating to yourself.
Perfect. We do have another question here from Milton Mesa. How do you make sure the scholarships you find are real? That is a good question, because there's a lot of scams out there.
Yeah.
I would say use websites that are like, are real, like fastwebs.com, I think is one. I forgot the names of the other ones, but then focus on the ones that someone recommended to you. So going to your career services office, they recommend you scholarships, so they're real. Or other people that have received scholarships, they'll recommend you scholarships, they're real. That is actually a big concern that I have with like going to Google and looking for scholarships.
In the last 3 minutes here before we close up, any last minute advice, any closing remarks that you want to let the students walk away with?
Yeah, I guess I'll let Sebastian talk really quick about our nonprofit and just where you guys can find out more, if you're interested in finding out those stories that I shared earlier.
Yeah, sure. So like I said, we're from Nontraditional College Success, and we have countless different resources that you can use to further your success in college. We have podcasts that go over, various different topics as to how to succeed at an engineering conference, to the personal journeys of people who went from non-traditional backgrounds to becoming full-fledged engineers. We have company overviews for various different organizations that you may want to be a part of, in your internship and full-time careers, and understanding what being an engineer is like. That being said, if you want this information, if you want to know more about it, you can scan the QR code or enter in that link tree, and you can follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram. We're Non-Traditional College Success, and we have plenty of resources to get you started on your journey through university. We wish you all the best moving forward. Stay curious, stay persistent, and stay positive, and we're all confident you will do great things.
Yeah, and thanks for having us. Thanks for having us, Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Arnold and Sebastian. You guys, Sebastian, I find it funny because you're like, professionals will step out of their day, and all three of us are. It's a work day. We took the time here to talk to these students because we were excited to talk to students, because we know when we were young, we would have loved to have had this interaction with someone to just pick their brains, right? We love to answer those questions. So thank you for taking the time out of your job to volunteer here on this panel. Thank you to all the participants for taking the time out of your school day, all the teachers that took the initiative to sign up their students. SHPE is here to help, and it takes all of you all, teachers, students, organizers, all in the background to get this stuff. So once again, thank you for spending the time. As this was the last big session, we're going to stay here on this link, and we're going to go ahead and bring Jay back into here for some closing remarks, and we'll take it away there, Jay.
Thank you guys, Arnold, Sebastian, Joe, all of the presenters, the sponsor of our workshop earlier, NSA. All of this was like literally gold. I hope the students and teachers are realizing this. These are things that I learned the hard way, I guess, or while we were already in college. I know Arnold and Sebastian probably had similar experiences. So being able to get access to this type of knowledge early on is huge for your futures. And none of us are any different than any of you. I mean, literally, I know we have Madison East High School here. My high school prom date was from Madison East High School. Like I literally hung out in the same area as you guys do. We grew up in similar situations, similar struggles. Each of us has our own little twist to our stories, but there's nothing different between us and you. I think one of the keys for why we've been able to have this success is a quote that I have in my office and I always look at, and it says, "Have big dreams, you will grow into them." And I think each of us kind of just took that dream, we put it in our brain and maybe on our walls, and really believed in that, believed in ourselves, surrounded ourselves with people and organizations like SHPE that would support us in those dreams. And even if we didn't know exactly what the next step was right away, as long as we had that big vision in mind, we could take small steps towards getting there. And that's kind of what engineering is like as well. You're kind of always living on the edge of that comfort zone because you want to keep pushing the barriers of technology so we can keep doing really cool things. So the more you can surround yourself with those type of opportunities and scenarios, the better off you all will be. So I hope that you will continue to engage with the organization. I know most of you are coming back tomorrow for the Engineering Design Challenge. that I'm super excited for, that you guys will be able to get some more hands-on experience. We also have some activities for parents that you can still register for. So we have an educators track and parent track in the pre-college conference. Those events will be on Saturday, October 30th, and the deadline is tomorrow to register. So if we could put that in the chat, any links that they need in order to register, in addition to some of the materials that you all will be receiving later on. So thank you again to all of our presenters, to Joe for taking the whole day and holding it down for all of the workshops. I appreciate all of your work on this. And again, to the students, keep in touch with SHPE. Follow SHPE National on Instagram. It's at SHPE National. Follow Nontraditional College Success on Instagram. Mine is at J Flores Inspires. Stay connected to this organization. And even if you decide engineering isn't what you want to study, stay connected to this group, because it's very supportive, and technology is going to be more and more a part of our lives every day, no matter what role you take on. So I see a lot of benefits for all of you guys. So thank you very much for your time today, and we will see you again tomorrow.